Hello, welcome to Indie Tutorials. My name is Guillermo and I would like to thank the patrons supporting this channel. Okay, so let's first tweak that we are going to do is to add to the blue schema the actions. So if we go to combatants section, combatants list, we see, for example, for this schema, if we scroll all the way down in the shortcut settings, we have the abilities to assign to each shortcut slot. So we just need to do the same for the blue schema. The yellow schema already had, but the blue schema is missing that setting. So let's click on that. So in shortcut settings, own list count. Let's double check, and then we do the assignments. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the shortcut type is ability. The first one is going to be thunder. Yep. And let's fix the index. So this is 01, 01. This is going to be 02, and ability as well. And this is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, should be attack. Yep. The third one is going to be blizzard. So 0 shortcut list, shortcut slot 3, ability or shortcut type ability, and let's choose blizzard. And for the last one, 0 and 4, going clockwise, shortcut type ability, and it's going to be guard. Save the settings, and that should fix the missing actions for this schema. So the next step is to fix the target settings, because previously we were using just one schema, therefore using individual targets. So in this case, that we are handling now a full group, we need to change the target settings to be groups targets and not individual targets. So let's navigate into the battle system. Then we have target settings. If we collapse the target selection, we can see that in the individual target setting we have this target setting 0, and this is what we did in previous video. So we just need to move all this logic into the group target settings in this case. The reason is that we want the selected target to be shared among all the combatants in the group. If we leave individual target settings, then if the red schema selects a target and we switch to the yellow schema will try to get its own target. What we want is to share the already selected targets to the next schemata. So let's click on group target settings, add target settings before deleting the individual, because we need to copy the settings. So we have auto select. We can remove only in battle range, so we can set it manually, the range, like we did previously, and it was 30 meters with a threshold of 5 meters or unity units. There we go. Then we uncheck ignore height, distance, and important thing is real-time battle over there. So let's do the same thing here. So ignore High distance, selected enemy, yes. Can select user, we uncheck those. And for the battle, we are only concerning about the real time battle, a custom one. So let's uncheck the other ones. Now for the input settings, we had used directional settings. For some reason I didn't make this to work, so let's keep it with the settings that is working. We don't want to allow both, but we want to loop through the selection, and we have a 0.5 seconds timeout. Then we are going to check use axis, and the axis we are going to use is target selection. Same for the vertical input, target selection. And previously we also had to spawn the target cursor just for have a quick feedback, but this is for debugging purposes, so I won't actually let's use it for the time being, just to make sure that the new mechanic is working. Let me select here the prefab so it's available here, and I just will drag it over here. The child object was battle text container, so let's copy, control copy, scroll up, control paste. I believe we set the local space, yes, it's checked. Okay, so at this point we can remove the individual target settings and save our changes. We are not done yet. We need to change something in the script as well. Remember that the Invector third-person controllers is using also the individual targets, so we need to change the settings there and in our BattleManager script. So before closing the editor, let's go to the menu settings, and we have the HUDs. Remember that we said that we were going to disable this one, so let's click on no display for the time being and click on save settings. We are going to handle the HUD in a different custom way because of the nature of this custom battle system. So ORK out of the box, it doesn't support having the way we want to display the ATB bar for the combatants, so we are going to handle that in a custom way. Now we save the settings, we can close the ORK editor, and let's find our script and open up in Visual Studio. Okay, so I scroll up, and what we want to include or add here is a reference to the current enemy. So let's go create combatant, private combatant, current enemy target. Okay, down, let's go down below. We were setting in the battle start to add to the cinemachine target, but I found out that sometimes, even though the selected target count is bigger than 1, the game object for this target or anything or other objects in this object can be null, and that was triggering an exception, therefore not letting our initialize schema to work. So I will just delete all this stuff to keep the code clean. There we go, and we can collapse initialize schema down, and here is where we were dealing or managing the targets to add them to the cinemachine target group. So this is a good place to create now another method to handle that in a different way. So let's comment it out this for the time being, and let's create a method and call it private void update targets. And the first thing we want to do is to check if the current schema, the group of the current schema selected target, is bigger than 0. So we make sure that we have a target selected. Then we store a temporary new target, a temporary combatant in this variable new target. So it will be current schema group selected target, and we fetch the first in the list. This is a list of combatants, and we do the same thing that we did before. So we check if this new target is not null, and also if this new target game object is not null. Then we can proceed. So if the reference that we created in the header, so if current target enemy is null, that means that this is the first time that we are selecting an enemy in the battle. We can then assign this current enemy target or the new target to the current enemy target. So we are replacing the object. And afterwards we call the CineMachine target group, and we add member current enemy target game object transform, and we pass again the weight and the rotation radius, or sorry, the radius 1.5 float. If the current enemy is not null, so else if the current enemy target is not equal to the new target, which means that it changed, then we need to check if the current enemy target is not null again, and also the current target game object is not null. Then we do the same, we do the replacement of the targets. So in first place we need to call the CineMachine remove member, so we remove the current target enemy game object transform, and afterwards we can set it back, so the current target is going to be equal to the new target, and in this case we add the member again. So let's just copy this section here, and that will handle our target selection change. So let's put this update targets in the battle tick, otherwise it won't be called. There we go. We can delete this block of code, and the last step will be to change the code in the InVector third person controller. So let's find that script. Let Unity compile the changes and scroll down. We have the InVector folder, scripts, character controller. and we have the third person motor, I believe is where we put our changes, and it is not. Third person control, yeah, control rotation type. So this is where we were doing this active group leader and select the target of the leader. So we just need to change to use the group instead of the leader. So let's see, let's remove this part. We are checking if we are running the battle. And the new thing that we want to do here is to fetch or grab the combatant component of this game object. So for that, let's create a variable here, combatant. So let's call it my combatant. Object. And let's use an ORK helper method, which is called component helper, and let's call the get combatant on this game object. We can check if it's null just for sanity's sake, although we make sure that this is a combatant. But anyways, let's check if combatant is not null. And also, if my combatant not grid but group, select the target 0, so the selected target at index 0 is not null. And also, if my combatant object group selected target at index 0 game object is not null. We need to keep doing these checks because yeah, sometimes ORK Framework returns that the index is or we have something in the list, but yet the game object or the combatant object is null, or this combatant object is not null but the game object itself is null. So we need to keep checking for this every single time, and afterwards that we are sure that none of these are false, so we can let me just copy this section here where we set the direction that we need to look at. So in this case, instead of the enemy is going to be my combatant, game object in this case is going to be group, selected target index 0 game object transform position, minus, instead of the leader of the group, is going to be the position of this game object. Alright, so after we have this logic, we can then call again the rotate direction. We are now safe to delete this piece of code, and this will handle this logic here. So let's click on save, and let's go back to Unity to let it compile the changes, and we can give it a try. Okay, so let me click on Ctrl P. Let's find jumper and start the battle. So if we go to the hierarchy and select the target group camera, we have schemata and one of the jumper selected. and it is actually the one selected by the ability. So let's go back to the target group, and if we were to change the target and then switch the schema, you will see that it updates to the right selected target. And that is working beautifully. Okay, so on the next video, let's continue tweaking and adding now the feedbacks, the visual feedbacks when switching the targets.